Tehachapi, California. In my opinion, it's the hidden gem of California, just 2 hours north of Los Angeles. And I get a lot of questions about this area. I also know that when I moved here 5 years ago from San Francisco, I had a hard time finding out a little information about the area. So I created this channel to hopefully provide a little more information for anyone who is looking to buy or sell property here. And if you would like any additional questions answered, or if you would like to start your home search or possibly maybe upgrade your home here, my contact information is below. Feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to help. But the point of this video is this is going to be part one of just typical common questions I get about Tehachapi. I get phone calls and emails from a variety of people every week who just want to know a little bit more. So I don't want too long of a video, so this is going to be part one. I'll have part two come out soon, and probably as time goes on, I'll make a part three as well when I get enough questions. So let's just jump into question number one. One of the most common questions I get is about the climate or the weather. So how hot, how cold does it get here? I do have my notes, so hopefully I can give you accurate information based off of my research. So our hottest month is July, and our coldest month is pretty split between December and January. We have 4 seasons here. We are higher elevation than most of Southern California, and so we do actually get a little snow, but in my opinion, not too much. So the hottest month, the average high temperature is 87, and the average low temperature is 56. The coldest month, the average high temperature is 49 and the average low is 25. Now, in this area, you could live at different elevations, which will kind of change what your climate will be like. So when you look at weather maps, more than likely it's kind of focusing on more of the central area of Tehachapi, the city. If you're in the outskirts, in some of the county areas, you might actually have some different climate temperatures, but we're just going to stick to the basics. The 2 closest major areas, cities nearby are Bakersfield on one side, on the west side, and Antelope Valley on the eastern side. So if you go down the mountain, you can get to one of those major areas. And Tehachapi is almost always 10 to 20 degrees cooler than those warmer climates. So during the summer, they could be 100, 110 down there, and we might only be in the 80s and 90s. So for full transparency, yes, we do have occasional heat waves, as does most of the West Coast. So there are definitely some uncomfortable moments in the mid to high 90s. Very rarely do we ever get a day over 100. In fact, this summer, my house never got a day over 100. It was pretty much capped at kind of that mid 90 range. So I personally don't have an air conditioner. Many homes here do, but it is a fairly mild summer climate, which is why one of the reasons why I live here. I don't really like the heat. On the flip side, the winter, in my opinion, it's awesome because we get a little bit of snow where it's fun, but we're also not shoveling every day. So in my 5 years that I've lived here, we usually get about 3, maybe 4 really good snowstorms each year. You could have anywhere, depending on where you live in Tehachapi, you could have 6 inches, you could have a couple feet. We do have snow plows in most of the communities here, and so they can accommodate any sort of weather that comes our way. But if you do happen to live at a higher elevation, you might run into a challenge of being snowed in a little longer or maybe not plowed as quickly. So it's just something to consider when you're moving here. And it's a common question I'm constantly answering. I love having 4 seasons because when I'm kind of over winter in February and March, I can start seeing a glimmer of spring and warmer temps and vice versa. Right now we're in fall and I am so ready for some cooler weather and I can't wait for the first snow this year. All right, question number 2. What is it like to commute out of town? So we are a relatively small town with a lot of communities kind of farther away from each other. So I do have a video on the main 5 communities here. I'll be sure to link that below in case you haven't watched it. And there are smaller ones and more than those. But basically, if you are going to be a daily commuter, picking the right community or the right location in a community might be something to consider. So when I first moved here, I was commuting out of town, and I had an extra 20 minutes to my house because of an outside community that I chose to buy a house at. instead of maybe Tehachapi or Golden Hills, I would have been able to cut down some of my commute time. Now, I fully made that decision knowing that, and many people do, but it's just something to consider that if you choose an outside community, specifically Bear Valley, Stallion Springs, parts of Alpine Forest, those areas are going to add on to some commute time. So the other thing that I was just talking about with weather during winter, if you do need to commute daily, maybe it's just daily to school for your kids, or maybe daily out of town for work. Maybe you're in the aerospace industry in the Mojave area or Edwards Air Force Base, or maybe you work down in Bakersfield. Either direction you go, there are some challenges during snowstorms, and it's just something to consider. But again, it's not really a big issue, and usually we know when the snowstorms are coming, so you can kind of prepare for it. But I would say if I personally could choose some of the most ideal areas for commuters, it would be Tehachapi City. It's very close to our major freeway, the 58. You also have Golden Hills. It is technically county territory, but it is very close to the 58 and some of the side roads out of town as well. So Mountain Meadows is another area that has a lot of off-the-grid properties, but it's actually very close to those major roads as well. So those are some that can cut down some time, but really, ultimately, it's just a matter of what you're looking for. And if you are relocating here, I would be happy to help answer more specific questions around that. All right, this is a common question I get is someone will ask, third question, someone will ask about buying land and maybe putting a tiny home on it or maybe putting a fifth wheel on it. What are the regulations? What are the zoning codes around that? And the answer is ultimately specific to each location. So there isn't an easy answer. I will say that there are a lot of communities here that have CC&Rs. And what that means is there are some regulations and rules that if you choose to buy a house there, you do need to follow those. And some of them do have limits as far as temporary housing or kind of non-home structures. So my best advice is if you are interested in tiny home living, find a tiny home provider, builder, tell them where you're looking to relocate or move, and ask them if they can help you figure out that zoning issue. If you maybe find some property, can they help you navigate the city and or county codes to see if that is an option for you? If you are looking for a fifth wheel kind of option, most of the communities don't allow anything like that unless it's while you're building a permanent structure. So it's a temporary period of time. But again, it depends on the community and the specific lot. So I would say definitely reach out to Tehachapi City if it's in those limits, or Kern County if it's in the county limits, if you want to know more, and hopefully they would be able to help you as well. But it's unfortunately not an easy answer. But it's not impossible completely. It's just, I personally don't see any tiny homes or anything like that here. It's not to say they don't exist. It's just not something that I've ever seen. So, all right, fourth question is, what is there to do? So if you probably asked me in my hometown when I was 17 or 18 what I thought of my hometown, I probably wouldn't have said too many positive things. I was ready to move out of town, across the country, and I didn't appreciate where I necessarily grew up, because really anywhere you grow up is, I don't know, not the most exciting. But personally, as an adult, I've looked back on my childhood and gone, wow, that was actually a really great place to grow up. And I'm thankful for that. So if you were to ask maybe a young adult or someone who grew up here, they might have a different perspective on things to do or excitement around the area versus someone like me who's chosen to relocate here. So for adults, some of the activities that you can do here, hiking, that's what I do a lot of. Biking, you can do, there's lots of mountain bike trails. There's also a lot of road cycling options, beautiful, curvy, rolling hills. There's lots of local art activities, wineries. We actually have an AVA designation, so we are a wine region in Tehachapi. And golf, we have one community here, Bear Valley Springs, which is an HOA gated community. They do have a golf course, so if you like to golf, that's a great spot to live. There are breweries, festivals, community theater, and there's also a bowling alley coming soon. There's a lot more. I'm just kind of giving you some highlights. Specifically with kids, there are all the assortment of kids activities. So there's all the sports teams through schools and through community centers like Little League, soccer, gymnastics. There's dance schools. There is a movie theater. It's very small, but we do have a small movie theater downtown. Like I said, we've got the bowling alley coming soon. We also have some action sports areas. So Tehachapi Parks and Rec has some action sports areas. We also have a world famous action sports camp, which is called Woodward West, and it's located in Stallion Springs. They do have summer camps, but they also have events through the year, and some of them are free for local community members. So we do have action sports facilities, which are, in my opinion, great. There's Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, lots of family-friendly festivals, which include Apple Festival, Mountain Festival, Oktoberfest, 4th of July, so many different things. And on that note, if you're watching this, in the first couple days that I post this coming weekend is our Apple Festival, which is one of our biggest and best events in my opinion. So October 15th and 16th, I believe that's the dates. Saturday and Sunday is our Apple Festival here. You can go pick apples. You can go to some of the events downtown. There's a carnival in a different area. So there's a lot to do. Some of it's free. Some of it you can buy tickets on the spot, but I absolutely love the Apple Festival. And if you haven't been to the area, I highly recommend coming for that event. It's just a lot of fun and you can kind of see what the community is like. One common question I get is around high-speed internet. So I am lucky when I moved here, a company called Race Communications had come into this area and it serves most of the Greater Tehachapi area. So it is high speed, it's high-speed internet, and it's a fiber optic internet service. And you can definitely, I'll link their information down below. I've never had an issue. I work from my home and I've never had any service outage. It's relatively affordable and I pretty much run everything through my internet. Now there are things like DirecTV. There are some cable companies as well. And also some of the homes up here do already have Starlink. So there are some options. Race Communications is pretty much what everyone I know uses as far as internet. And so we're really lucky to have that here. All right, are there any medical facilities nearby? This is definitely an important question. So we actually have a relatively new hospital, and that is right off the freeway, and we're really lucky to have that. We also have many small doctor's offices, dentist office to choose from, and so we do have a wide variety of options here. If you need more services, we're from the city of Tehachapi, 45 minutes to Bakersfield, 45 minutes to Antelope Valley. So there's lots more options, either one of those directions. And we are only 2 hours north of Los Angeles, which obviously opens up the medical options as well. So definitely an important thing to consider. And yeah. All right, 2 more questions on this Q&A. Is there an airport nearby? So we have a very small airport here in Tehachapi. Technically we have 2. One is kind of just a small plane airport and one is a glider airport. I've actually been on a glider ride and it was a lot of fun. So we do have those, but as far as traveling, maybe you need to commute for work or travel to see family, Bakersfield Airport is not a huge airport, but they do offer services, especially if you don't mind stopping somewhere. And like I said, we're only 2 hours north of Los Angeles. So Burbank and LAX are probably the 2 best ones as far as distance. And so lots of options. All right, last question on this video is, are there a lot of trees? What is that climate like? So I talked about kind of the weather elements. This is more what that climate is like, the designation. So this is a mostly native area. Most of Southern California is this golden color most of the year with native plants, and Tehachapi is that. So obviously properties have put in trees, and we do have some native oaks and native shrubs and native plants, but we do have golden hills most of the year. So this is a Mediterranean climate for most of the area. We do have some of the higher elevations, which is in the Pine Line, and which has more of that mountain feel. But most of it's the Mediterranean climate. The climate is 8A and 8B as far as growing region. So depending on where you're at, you're going to be in probably one of those two. And we also, on the eastern side of Tehachapi, when you get closer to the high desert, there are some Joshua trees scattered, and it's a little more desert-like over there. So it really depends on where you're at in Tehachapi, but most of it is that Mediterranean climate. Many properties embrace that natural look. So if you have some acreage, many of us don't have grass. We do have lots of fire clearance to consider, and that's very easy to find out that information when you move here from the fire departments. A lot of us have the drivable lawn tractors or garden tractors to maintain that, weed whackers, and every property is different. So my property, I have about 2 acres, and I've got over 50 trees on my property that were original here, but there are some properties with no trees, no established trees. So it really depends on the actual property you choose, but it varies. In my opinion, I love Southern California. I love the variety that we have here. And in April and May, it is incredibly green here, and it just is stunning. So that is it for this video. Stay tuned for another one soon. I already have some more questions for part 2. And again, if you are seeing this in the first couple days when this video goes up, be sure to consider coming up for the Apple Festival. The best thing to do before even looking at homes is just to visit the area, just to see if it's something that you may like. Maybe pick a local event, or maybe pick something that we have here, some restaurants, some wineries, a family-friendly event, and go to it and just kind of see what the community is like. I personally came to the Apple Festival 5 years ago, and a month later, I was home shopping here. And it's just because I really fell in love with the area, and I'm still really happy I decided to come here. So on that note, if you need more information from me, or if you want to start your home search, contact me. My information's down below. I'd be happy to help, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.